Hey guys, welcome to Joko Yo. Today's episode is about a preacher, a deacon, a fiddler, and a barn dance that ended in a courthouse. Only in Johnston County. It's a story about who gets to decide what joy looks like and what happens when the answer is a Methodist minister with very strong opinions and a very loud voice. We'll also talk about Kevin Bacon. Briefly, he earned it, so you know what, let's just get into it. It was springtime in Selma, 1901, a sleepy railroad town hugging the tracks in the heart of Johnston County, where tobacco fields stretched like green oceans, and the weekend whistle of the Atlantic coastline brought folks alive with possibility. Now, before we go any further, I gotta set the scene for you, because Selma in 1901 was not some backwater crossroads. The town was born out of the railroad, literally. On May 1st, 1867, lots were sold around a newly established station on the North Carolina Railroad, and from these lots, the entire town of Selma grew. By 1901, it sat at the junction of two major rail lines. Two, passengers and freight moving north, south, east, and west. It was, in the language of the era, a town literally going places, even if most of the people in it weren't going anywhere. And that matters. Because when you live in a railroad junction town, things and people arrive. Goods arrive, ideas arrive, and occasionally trouble arrives, usually on the afternoon train. So picture it. Farmers in suspenders, ladies in calico, gathering under lantern light at the Mitchner barn just outside town. Fiddles scraped out Cotton-eyed Joe just to pick out something. Feet stomped the dirt floor, and laughter was cutting through the humid night air. But not everyone approved. Oh no. No. Enter Reverend Elias Thornhill. Fresh off the train from Smithfield, a Methodist firebrand with a voice like thunder and eyes that saw demons with every twirl. Now, Reverend Thornhill was not operating in a vacuum here. He was tapping into something that had been brewing across America since, the Puritans got off the boat. Early opposition to dancing in America came primarily from the Puritans, who equated it with promiscuity and sinfulness. They were particularly troubled by what they called mixed dancing, meaning men and women together, which they believed led straight to temptation. That was the 1600s. By the time Thornhill showed up in Selma, that tradition of moral panic about dancing has been simmering for about 2.5 centuries. And it wasn't just the fringe, the waltz. You all know the waltz. It was banned in the 1820s by Pope Leo XII, and American etiquette books warned readers about it. Southern Literary Magazine in 1835 clutched its pearls over young women being whirled about in the giddy, exciting mazes of the licentious waltz. The waltz, people. The waltz. The one your grandmother does at weddings. So when Thornhill stepped off that train in Selma, he was not an outlier. He was a man riding a very long historical wave, a wave that had crashed on American shores many, many times before. Thornhill, tonight, wasted no time. His first Sunday sermon shook the rafters of Selma Methodist. He says, "Dancing is the devil's own jig. It leads our young straight to perdition." And he named names right there from the pulpit. Deacon Jedediah Poole, respected elder of the Baptist Church, a man who'd built half the pews himself, was caught square dancing at that very barn. Poole, with his broad shoulders and quicker laugh, defended himself the next week in a fiery letter to the Smithfield Herald. He said, "The good book says to rejoice with mirth, Reverend, not to mope in the shadows." Man, the town split like a log under an axe. Young couples craving a whirl after long weeks in the fields, they rallied to Poole. The old guard, clutching their hymnals, stood firm with Thornhill. By April, the Selma News blared it. People were all talking about it, that Poole was barred from communion and branded a tempter of souls. Now I want to pause here, because what's happening in Selma is part of a pattern playing out all over the country at the time period. Everywhere you turned in early 20th century America, dances were being outlawed. Catholic bishops in Nashville and Cincinnati told their flocks that dancing of the turkey trot would not be forgiven for their sins. I mean, I think they're probably bigger fish to fry for St. Peter and the guys. The city of Wilmington, North Carolina, our own state, outlawed dancing. The whole city of Wilmington. Tell that to people that dance the shag on the beach. But the city of Wilmington, North Carolina, outlawed dance and said creations of questionable nature, such as the shimmy shivers, the tank tango, and the prohibition jag. Yeah, the prohibition jag, man, I want that name on a t-shirt. Dances that drew partners close together became flashpoints for public outrage coast to coast. Dance critic Sarah Kaufman put it plainly: the joy that dancing brings and the transcendent feeling of being swept up in something is precisely what threatens people who need to control things. Because at its root, dancing is about the body, and controlling what people do with their bodies is a very old form of power, y'all. Thornhill, it seems, had read the playbook. Now, back in Selma, tensions boiled over at the river baptism in June. Oh, goodness. A deacon loyal to Thornhill shoved Poole during the dunking. During a baptism, a deacon loyal to Thornhill shoved Poole during the dunking. Fists flew, and the Herald's headline screamed, "Selma Saints Scuffle." This is all true, y'all. The whole mess landed in the Johnston County courthouse, where Thornhill thundered about immoral dancing, sparking unwed pregnancies and petty thefts. 12 witnesses, farmers, shopkeepers, even the fiddler, swore under oath they jigged the night away but insisted it was harmless joy. Poole walked with a $5 fine. Thornhill slunk back to his pulpit, shamed but unbowed. $5. Now, you might not think it's a big deal, but y'all, $5 adjusted for 2026 inflation is about $180 today. Deacon Poole paid $180 to keep his right to do-si-do. I say it's a bargain. But here's where the tale twists even more. Like kudzu around an oak, Poole's own daughter, headstrong Eliza, decided she had had enough of this life and eloped with that barn fiddler, smack in the feud's heat, vanished to parts unknown, leaving whispers of scandal. Could come in a worse time. Thornhill preached visions of demons in the dance hall, and the Herald printed poems of fiddles summoning Satan's grin. Merchants quietly backed Poole. Those Saturday hoedowns kept coin flowing after harvest, after all. By fall, Thornhill's flock dwindled to echoes, and he lit out for Clayton with his sermon notes in his hand. And here's the thing. The merchants were right to back Poole. Economy always wins. From the 1830s to the 1950s, when dancing was restricted in communities across America, what often emerged in its place was so-called play parties, community gatherings designed to do exactly what a dance did, just without technically dancing. People found a way. They always do. You can ban the fiddle, but you can't ban a foot tap. Now, Johnston County's little dance war, that's what I'm going to call it, a dance war, of 1901 never made it into the history books. Oh well. But here's what I love about it. It rhymes with something that did make it into the history books, or at least into a Kevin Bacon film. Y'all know what I'm talking about. When the town of Elmore City, Oklahoma was incorporated in 1898, public dancing was outlawed within the town limits. Now get this, they make this brand new town called Elmore City, Oklahoma, and the first thing they want to do, make a constitution, whatever, charter, and then inside that, ban dancing. That's oddly specific. That ban held for 82 years, though, through 15 presidencies. What? And in 1980, a group of high school juniors decided they wanted a prom. This is all true story. And for years, students had asked to be allowed to have a prom, only to be told no time and time again because it would be against the law of Elmore City, Oklahoma. That community split. Sound familiar? Every church preached against it on Sunday morning. But the students prevailed and they got their dance. Now, headlines about Elmore City's ban inspired a Yale-educated writer to write the screenplay and lyrics for what would become an American cultural juggernaut, the 1984 movie Footloose, spawning a multi-platinum soundtrack that displaced Michael Jackson's Thriller from the top of the charts. And here's the part that gets me. The real motivation behind the school board president finally casting the tie-breaking vote? To keep kids off a nearby mountain where they'd been going to drink and party on prom night precisely because dancing was banned. Lots of liquor involved, recalled one of the students in the real life. The anti-dancing crusade had, ironically, created the very danger it claimed to prevent. Makes me think of prohibition. Thornhill would have understood that logic perfectly and probably still disagreed. The Selma story ended the same way Elmore City's did, not with a dramatic ruling, but with a slow and practical surrender. Merchants needed the hoedowns, young people needed a reason to stay in town on a Saturday, and common sense, that most underrated of Johnston County virtues, eventually prevailed. Which brings us to what happened just 7 years later. In 1908, Johnston County gained the distinction of Banner Whiskey County when its voters led the state in opposing statewide prohibition. Johnston, this county. The measure passed anyway. North Carolina became the first southern state to enact statewide prohibition in the entire South, but Johnston County State said on the record loudly, "No, thank you, we want to keep our alcohol." A county that fought for the right to dance in 1901 and then fought for the right to drink in 1908. Man, that's not a coincidence. That's a personality type. Drive US 70 through Selma today and that old depot still squats by the tracks. To the people of Selma, the depot has long been more than just a transportation hub. Selma was born as a railroad town, and the depot is a significant piece of its identity. They say it's haunted by a spectral conductor calling phantom trains. I can't confirm or deny that, but I will say that any building old enough to have witnessed the arrival of both the Atlantic coastline and Reverend Thornhill has earned the right to a ghost or two. Pools can, so the story goes, run a store down the street, passing down Grandpa's grin. He danced till dawn and we do it again. That 1901 dust-up planted seeds for Johnston County's rebel streak, which sort of had always been there anyway. The same fire that made Johnston Banner Whiskey County in 1908 and a staging ground for the War of the Regulation, the same defiant streak that decades later would make this place what it is: stubborn, rooted, bit rowdy, and entirely unbothered by what the preacher thinks about your Saturday night. Unless, of course, it is. Page through those Herald scans yourself. The ink's still wet with small town fury. And the fiddler, well, now no one knows where he and Eliza ended up, but I like to think they danced wherever they landed. And that's pretty much of what I got to say about Selma's dance floor demons. Y'all, that's Joko Yo today, and be good.